Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast powered by Riverwind Casino. My name is Brandon Drum. I'm here with Parker Thune. The drought is over. It is over. Nico Jandro, 3-star safety out of Arizona, committed to Oklahoma yesterday. Full story over on OUinsider.com. Good get. He has a twin brother named Bo Jandro that everybody in the country also wants at linebacker. So we're going to dive into both of those instances and stories. Talk about how that commitment came about with Nico Jandro. Talk about where things stand with Bo Jandro. Talk about new running back offer as well. And also talk about probably where things stand at safety, recruiting, and a few other positions, but more or less safety, so that you all get a better feel of where that is headed moving forward, who those targets are, and where things stand with each target moving forward. All that right here on this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast, powered by Riverwind Casino. But first, we want to thank our sponsors.
And that begins with Riverwind Casino, OKC's premier gaming destination for almost 2 decades. Nearly 3,000 electronic games, table games, bars, and dining options, plus the best live music in the metro. It's no surprise that Riverwind is always a good time. Check them out right off I-35 and Highway 9. Also want to give a shout out to Jana King, a proud partner of OU Athletics and the greatest team to ever clean, delivering spotless results and solutions from stadiums to any size business across the country. You can check them out at janiking.com. That's JANIKING.com. And if you've been listening to this podcast for really any amount of time, you've probably heard us talking about Mando. Look, everybody to a certain extent deals with BO, and Mando whole body deodorant was created and formulated by a doctor who saw firsthand how normally BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Mando is clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours, and it's safe to use anywhere on your body. Use your imagination here. Anywhere. All products are baking soda free and paraben free, and you can choose from a variety of fresh scents like bourbon leather, Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. It's clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone, and Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like the mini body wash and deodorant wipes, as well as free shipping. Now, as a special offer for our listeners, new customers are going to get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code INSIDER at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. And finally, a word from Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. So if you, like Brandon, are following along closely to all of the developments throughout the NBA playoffs, and most specifically what's going on with the OKC Thunder, and you get a feeling that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is about to drop a 40-piece, or you feel like, as it was last night, it's going to be a particularly strong performance from one Lou Dort, well, head over to Prize Picks and turn your opinions, turn your perspectives into cold, hard cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports, so join millions of users and sign up today. Cash in on the basketball playoffs. Don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prize Picks lineup and turn your playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. Now, download the app today and use code OU Insider to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code OU Insider to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Well, Brandon, the longest drought of the Brent Venables era before
Yeah.
yesterday without a commit was Michael Fasusi on August 21st, 2024 to Jet New on December 4th, 2024. That spanned 105 days. From Daniel Odom's commitment on January 28th, 2024 to Nico Jandro's commitment on May 13th. I said 2024 for Daniel Odom. Obviously, it was 2025. But to Nico Jandro's commitment on May 13th, 2025, you know what that spanned? 105 days as well.
Yeah.
So two exactly congruent and equal droughts in the last year for Oklahoma. But the most recent one is officially over with the addition of Jandro, the hard-hitting safety from Hamilton High School out in Chandler, Arizona. Really cool how he decided to wait till Brandon Hall got down for the in-person evaluation period visit before informing Hall in person that he was going to be committing to the University of Oklahoma.
Oklahoma waited 3 hours to be able to get that commitment, by the way. I want people to understand from what I was told yesterday is that obviously both Brandon Hall, Nate Dreiling being the linebacker coach, they were both down there to recruit the Jandro brothers. There was sort of a college jamboree going on at Hamilton High School where they were kind of funneling all these college coaches through to meet the prospective athletes that are Power Four slash G5 slash Division One AA type of athletes that are on that team. And speaking to a source, I guess Oklahoma waited to be the final coaches to go through. They got in the back of the line and they waited patiently, from what I'm told. And I talked to some people down there in Phoenix as well, or Chandler, and they said it was worth the wait for Oklahoma. Obviously, those that have seen the video see the reaction from Brandon Hall. When I put the note up on OU Insider, that because we got told several hours before this went down that this was going to happen, and put the note up kind of hinting that there was news about the break, the drought was about to be over. And that's how that went down, is exactly how it was described to me, where Brandon Hall told him to just stop. Don't mess with me. Stop joking with me. You know, all that type of stuff. Because he couldn't believe it. OU has also been counting down the days since their last commit. They knew how long it had been. It was frustrating for them as well, fans. I promise you. And so to get that commitment, to know that you have a really good shot with Bo Jandro, which we'll discuss here in a second, this is a big get. And I know people see the 3 stars. It's May, number 1. Number 2, Jandro watches film, he will be a 4-star. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that. Like, the dude is going to be a 4-star when it's all said and done. And he fits Oklahoma. He reminds me of so many safeties that have played in Brent Venables' system. Just headhunters. Just guys that are going to be physical, going to do their run fits properly, come down, and just be able to make the stops in the run game as well, not just the passing game. And that is critical in a Brent Venables defense. And yes, I know a lot of people see Nico Jandro as a cheetah. And
understandably so.
Understandably so. That's what I was, yeah. So understandably so. Oklahoma likes him at safety. They like him at safety. And they like him at safety because he can do so many things. If you watch his film, he covers man really well. Like he does. He covers really well. He's got really good feet. For somebody that's built the way that he's built, to have the feet that he has is kind of extraordinary, to be honest. And so this was another great eval by Brandon Hall. He's done this a couple of times. Amarian Robinson, 3-star, ended up being one of the top 50 players. I think he was 52 actually on Rivals.com at the end of the cycle. 3-star, Michael Boganowski, when he committed, ended up being a 4-star when it was all said and done. So, like, again, he evals really, really well. Jaden Hardy was barely in the top 250, shot up in the rankings when it was all said and done. And so, again, you got to trust Brandon Hall in his evaluations there. History tells us that he knows what he's doing. Kendall Dolby was a question whenever he got, remember, everybody's like, it's a JUCO guy. Why are you going after a JUCO guy? Kendall Dolby's pretty dang good, Parker. Everybody's kind of glad he's back. So trust the man's evaluations. That's all I got to say. I've learned to trust him. I suggest you all do as well because Nico Jandro can flat ball. And a really, really solid get, Parker. Really solid get.
And the obvious angle that you kind of turn to next, once you acknowledge, okay, Nico Jandro on his lonesome is a really talented football player and brings a lot of value to the table for Oklahoma. The other reality is you're probably looking at a 2-for-1 deal here with
Correct.
him and his twin brother Bo, because hey, let's face it, and obviously nothing is a sure thing until Bo locks in his own commitment, but with everything those two have said and expressed about wanting to play together, the reality that they are twins, right? How often do you see twins choose different schools when they,
Identical, by the way.
yeah, when they both have the option
Yeah.
to play together at the power forward level? So at this point, I think it would be quite shocking if Bo Jandro doesn't wind up in Oklahoma's class as well, alongside his twin brother. And worth noting as well, Nico is the very first defensive pledge of the class for
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma, so he's the OG in that regard, and he also happens to be the first in what is likely a 2-for-1 deal for the
Yeah.
Sooners. And both he and his brother, I mean, again, you look at the offer sheet. There's a reason why so many programs want these guys. And Bo's offer sheet is actually a little bit more impressive than Nico's. Nico dealt with some injuries this past year, his junior year. And so there were a lot of programs, Oregon being one of them, that wanted to get an in-person eval before they offered. Well, it turns out by the time Oregon came around to do the in-person eval, Nico was already pretty settled on Oklahoma. Oklahoma did not feel the need to see him in person before pulling the trigger on him. But you look at the offer sheet for those two individually, and you do have some differences between the two. There are schools that offer Nico that didn't offer Bo, and there are schools that have offered Bo that haven't offered Nico. But two really robust offer sheets with some very impressive schools represented, i.e., USC, Washington, Missouri, Arizona State in Nico's case. Bo just picked up an offer from Texas
Mm-hmm.
the other evening. He's got Tennessee on there. He's got Notre Dame after him. So uh, if you look no further than the offer sheets themselves, if you were one of those people that uh, you don't watch the tape, you don't break any of it down yourself, you just look at the star ratings and you look at who else has offered. Well, okay, yes, they're both 3 stars for now, but the offers suggest that both of these guys are quite coveted nationally. And so this
Mm-hmm.
would be a dynamic way to start out the 2026 class on the defensive side for OU. And maybe this gets the ball rolling. Man, I know we're not
Yep.
quite to OV season yet. I know it might not be realistic to expect another commitment next week and then another the week after that. But Nico gives Oklahoma some momentum going into OV season now, which it kind of felt like this program needed because of how many of these battles have gone a different direction in recent days with guys like Alger Miles and Toa Katoa. And, we expect that Ryan Gilbert is going to choose SMU over Oklahoma as well. So SMU has really become a thorn in Oklahoma's side down there in
Yep.
DFW. That's an entirely different conversation and a much broader, much larger one. But getting Nico Jandro, the second Arizona native of the Brent Venables era to commit to the Crimson and Cream, with Jeremiah Newcomb obviously being the first, it's some much needed momentum going into OV season for this program.
It's huge. They obviously, like you said, Ryan Gilbert seems to be trending towards SMU, but we expected for the longest time expected this week to be good for Oklahoma just because Ryan Gilbert was supposed to commit. So it's good to get that replacement, if you
Got
will.
one, even if it wasn't the one you expected.
Yep. And I think that's probably a good way to turn this because there's going to be a lot of unexpected commitments. We haven't podcast since the Brian Harris situation came
Uh-huh.
up, and I think that we probably should dive into that. I think that would be warranted because it kind of falls in line with the Nico Jandro, Bo Jandro situation. Yes, we expected those two to end up at Oklahoma. That was our expectation for a
Mm-hmm.
while that they were going to be Sooners. However, if you go back 2 months, they weren't on our bingo card, and that's has a lot to do with Nagy and that hire. That's what we're talking about when there's going to be a lot of surprises because of Jim Nagy. His scouting, his ability to talk with the coaches and get them to be in the same kind of mindset as far as what they're going to go after and who they're going to go after, it differs a bit from what they originally were doing. And so there's going to be some guys in this class that, whoa, surprise. Again, Jandro brothers, Brian Harris,
Yeah.
4-star defensive tackle out of Jacksonville, Florida. And I mean, you watch his film and he fits everything that Jim Nagy likes.
I'll
Long,
say this,
rangy.
Brandon. I think there's a very realistic chance. I mean, you look at the OV list and you look at the guys that are going to take official visits with Oklahoma this next month. A lot of these guys are already in 4-star territory, but I think a common denominator that you might notice when you're mindful of some of the recent offers, guys like Matthew Nelson, the edge from Arkansas, who is as of yet unranked, Ben Wenzel, the 3-star linebacker from Appleton, Wisconsin, uh, somebody like DeAnthony Lafayette, 3-star edge rusher from Lake Nona, Florida. You may have a lot of guys, and I think Nico and Bo Jandro could both fall into this category for the time being, at least. You may have a lot of guys, a lot more than you're used to, committing to Oklahoma as 3 stars. Just because more so than ever before, I think the evaluative calculus at
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma when it comes to what Jim Nagy and his staff are doing, that they're not going to care what the recruiting services say, right? Like
Yeah.
Jim Nagy has operated at the highest level long enough to know a good football player when he sees one. That doesn't mean he's going to have a 100% hit rate, but I would think there are going to be quite a few guys that commit to Oklahoma as 3-star prospects that wind up rising later on once they play their senior year, or just wind up stuck in 3-star territory for one reason or another, but then get to college and turn out to be really, really productive players.
Yeah. He likes guys that he can see project to the NFL. And that is how he and his scouting staff go about. Like if he thinks they can project into an NFL player and be drafted midway through the rounds 5, 6, that is and earlier, obviously. That is who Nagy is going after. That I've been told that on multiple occasions. That is how he looks at it. Like if he can see this person developing into the player that he would have potentially offered to come play in the Senior Bowl, that's what they're going after. And if you're an Oklahoma fan, that's got to excite you a little bit. It really should. Like you should look at that and go, okay, so the recruiting services don't have him as a 4-star, but the guy that was a scout for the NFL, and mind you, multiple scouts in the NFL are at Oklahoma doing that in the front office right now, say that this person's going to turn into this most likely if they develop and everything goes right the way that they hope it does and no injuries, all that type of stuff. They trust their eyes. We probably should too. They know what they're looking at. They've been doing it forever. They're gonna miss. They're gonna miss on some guys. Like they're not
Everybody
gonna bat
does.
100. Everybody
Everybody
does.
does. Because again, like what can you do when you get a Devon Mitchell? You know, a guy that checks every physical box imaginable, but shows up and just doesn't buy in. Like you can't control that, right? Like you can lead a horse to water, can't make him drink. Um, that doesn't mean you stop trying to obtain the best horses you possibly can.
Yeah. I mean, let's say they bat 65, 70%. You're going to win a lot of dang games if you do that every class.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of games. There's a good chance you win a couple of SEC titles in the midst of all that. So just that would be our recommendation right now, is to just trust Nagy and his team and the OU staff, because they've done a good job so far of scouting high school talent. And I think you're just starting to see that now in the 2025 season, because this is the first year where it didn't feel like it was mass turnover, right, Parker? Like there was
Mm-hmm.
15 transfers this time out of 105 players. So 90 out of 105 were on the team the previous season. 81 freshmen and sophomores played in 2024 for Oklahoma, meaningful snaps. That's a lot of freshmen and sophomores that played. And you can do that now with the transfer portal. It's weird how that works, because 25, 26 in every class, right? Well, when you're getting all these transfers added on to it, the classes get kind of mangled as far as freshman, sophomore numbers go. So, and then you got your redshirt freshmen as well and redshirt sophomore. So that plays into it as well. So it, that should tell you, like, moving forward, this is what Brent Venables envisioned the program to be, Parker. More consistent
Mm-hmm.
within the roster. And I think that's what you're moving towards with Oklahoma. I don't know. You and I disagree
Well,
nationally, but
well,
yeah, Oklahoma, that's what they're moving for.
yeah, and quite frankly, that's what it needs to move toward. Like
Yes.
there needs to be progress made in that direction, because I mean it for me it's been a topic of discussion on the radio on a couple of occasions. When we look back at that 2023 class, for instance, that was so good, so impressive on paper, at least. On the day all those guys put pen to paper and signed with the University of Oklahoma, we were very impressed with the 2023 class at Oklahoma, the number 6 class in the nation. You look back through it now, so many of those guys have transferred or left the program one way or another,
Mm-hmm.
or just haven't done much of anything to this point at the collegiate level. And so, man, it's one thing to sign an impressive recruiting class on paper. I guess
Yep.
here's maybe the way I can put it most concisely. It matters much less to have an impressive recruiting class on signing day as it does on graduation day. Your hope is that all those guys, once they get in your building, once they buy in, uh, kind of dig their heels in your program, start to learn and develop and own their own personal trajectory as football players. Your hope is that 4 years down the road, when those guys are through, like when they walk, when they're through at the University of Oklahoma, um, and they can kind of and you can kind of look at their careers in the rearview mirror and take stock of all that they've done. You hope that that class outperformed your expectations,
Yeah.
the expectations that you would have cultivated when all of those guys signed. Because I don't even know that it matters if you get some of those guys from the 2023 class, like Taylor Heim and Jacoby Johnson and Samuel Masigo and Marcus Strong, to like really click and hit their ceiling at this point and become impact players for Oklahoma. I think on the whole, based on what has already happened with a ton of those dudes in the 23 class, you're going to look at that class as a disappointment in
Mm-hmm.
hindsight, because it was the number 6 class in the nation. It did come with such lofty expectations, and there are so many guys that have already washed out from that group.
It was an awful class. Like, looking back at hindsight, 2020.
Yeah, and
The,
we're singing a very different tune from the one we were singing in December 2022 when all those guys signed. It looked like an amazing class,
yeah, after
but
6 and
that
7
illustrates the
season.
difference,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, yeah, you love to have a class that you can get excited about on signing day, but you'd much rather be excited about that class on graduation day.
Very much so. And you look back at that 2022 class, which looked to be just kind of pieced together, and that class is still kind of kicking. and there's some ballers in that class. Gentry Williams, R. Mason Thomas, Robert Spears Jennings, Jacob Sexton. I mean, trying to think who else am I missing off the top of my head, Parker, in that 22 class.
Those are
Kip
certainly.
Kip Lewis.
Yep, Kip Lewis was a 22 guy.
Yep. But still, I mean, if you hit like that, those six that we just named, or five or whatever it was, if you hit five or six like that in every class, you're going to win ball games.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. So, I mean, that's the goal moving forward for Oklahoma, is to, obviously it's a goal every year, but don't get too distracted with the rankings, because they're evaluating for long term, instead of where did you rank when it's all said and done. Because remember, and I say this all the time, and everybody's like, well, those are outliers. Clemson had one top 10 class when they won their first two national titles, right? Michigan did not recruit well leading up, but they developed those guys and they all stayed. And that's what won them. TCU played for a national championship, but they did it by just rebuilding through the portal. So there's different ways to do it. There's different ways to make that move. For all the number one and top five classes that Georgia and Texas and USC, and who else am I missing here? Ohio State has won a lot of natties. They've won two, I believe, in the last decade. So, but still, for as well as they've recruited, they should have won more, right? And Alabama's the one that won. And yeah, they are the one team that you can look at and say, they did this, 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 and this. But guess what? Oklahoma's using their exact scouting methods to build their roster moving forward. Exactly like Nick Saban did. Oklahoma wasn't real big on the length, the metrics, the measurements. Remember that when that was kind of the deal whenever the camps, remember, Parker, they didn't do the 40s at the camps. They weren't doing the measurements. They weren't doing all that. They were just showing up and, are you a good football player?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to offer you if you're a good football player. And that's what Oklahoma had been doing. And they got really good recruiting classes out of it. But they got two seasons that were 6 and 7. So, and turnover has a lot to do with that as well. But I'm interested to see how by the way, the camps with Jim Nagy around, are they going to move to a more 40s shuttle, hand measurements, height, all that? You think they're going to move to that? I think so.
Well,
in some aspect, maybe not the 40s and shuttles and all that, but I bet you they do the measurements.
Yeah, they probably will. I mean, don't they do that already, though?
I haven't ever seen them do the measurements. I always just see them. They do it when they show up to campus for a visit, but I've never seen it. That was kind of the thing with Brent Venables, right? You're not going to be doing the 40s and the shuttles and all that. They just got into football drills. I don't know. It's an interesting. I'm excited to see it next month. I really am. So I know that's a different topic altogether. Let's talk about Brian Harris.
Let's
teased
do it.
Teased it. Oklahoma, Todd Bates, once again, reeling in a defensive tackle nobody expected them to get. You go back, Jaden Jackson, Dominic Williams, like players, whether in the portal or in the high school ranks. Bates just does this every year, Parker. There's like one guy that you're like, what?
Where did that come from? Yeah.
Where did this come from? Yeah. Every year. This year it seems to be Brian Harris. Now, there could be a few others at defensive tackle because he's got a pretty broad net thrown out there of official visitors coming in. So we'll see where that turns. But we have a pretty good feel of where we think this class is going to end up. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. People watch Brian Harris's film, Parker, and they see this 6'4", 290-pound defensive end. And we saw it on our board. Stands up too fast. He's doing this. He's doing that. Well, he's playing out of position. That's number one. He is not a defensive end, but he's so freaking athletic. And that should just make OU fans giddy. How athletic. He's that big and that athletic that he can play the edge, Parker, in Florida with all that speed. In Florida.
You don't see a lot of 290-pound guys doing that in a state like that.
No.
He's an impressive specimen.
Yeah. Alabama wants him, South Carolina, Michigan, Penn State. That's who Oklahoma's going up against. Guess what? If you win those type of battles, you're getting yourself a good football player. And that's the other thing. Look at the offer sheets. Rankings be danged. Look at the offer sheets. That's what, and we say that all the time, by the way. Who's offered them?
Mm-hmm.
That's more important. And yeah, there's a juxtaposition to it where you can say, well, Oklahoma did really good evaluating. The offers weren't great, but they evaluated really well. So yeah, there's two sides to that blade.
There is, and generally speaking, though, it all comes out in the wash, because if it's just a really good eval by Oklahoma on a guy that's flown under the radar, the other offers are going to come later on, right?
Unless
they
it's really
always,
late,
they always fly in later on. But if it's a guy that carries a 3-star ranking, for instance, that Oklahoma throws a hat in the ring for, generally a pretty good indicator that he's going to wind up outperforming or outpacing that rating when you see schools like Michigan and Alabama and Penn State in the mix for the same player. Great example of this would be like an R. Mason Thomas, right? Like R. Mason Thomas, his senior year, he went and committed to Iowa State, obviously, and then he picked up offers from everybody. I mean, LSU, Miami, Florida State, I do believe. Florida may have offered him as well. And obviously, Oklahoma was right there in the thick of it. Kind of late to the table, but they wound up getting him. So, yeah, if you're good enough for a school like Oklahoma, in general, like if that staff and those coaches are going to pull the trigger on you, generally it's going to be the case that they're going to be some pretty high-level P4 programs that see the same things Oklahoma sees.
That's fact. And you look at Brian Harris, and everybody in the country wanted him, naturally. He's announcing on May 23rd. Oklahoma seems to be trending really well right now. I don't believe you and I have put in picks. And we haven't because as well as Oklahoma's trending, well, I'll see in a few more days before I want to see where this thing goes. Right now, it feels like Oklahoma is moving in a very, 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 very solid direction there. But he wants to play in the SEC. Alabama's closer. South Carolina's closer. That makes sense. For the longest time, it felt like Penn State and Michigan were way up high for him. And that's the funny thing about it. So if you look at that, maybe he wants to leave the state of Florida. Maybe he wants to get further out of the Southeast, and Oklahoma provides the best option for that. Possibly. I don't know. I'm just looking at it from a perspective of Penn State was his top school for the longest time. And now people that know that recruitment that we've talked to says Penn State and Michigan aren't going to get him. Mm-hmm. I'm not ready to write off either one of those two because, again, seen this a million times where somebody says this, or that, and it ends up being exactly the opposite of what they tell us. So, either way, if Oklahoma could pull this off, Parker, that is a phenomenal get. That's literally 2 commits in 10 days after going 105 days without getting a commit in the 26 class. And right before the official visits start to happen, and we fully expect Oklahoma to start moving in the direction of landing commits in June, July, and August on a weekly or bi-weekly basis at that point, and probably multiple
Mhm.
during that time frame.
Well, and I
Particularly,
hate to bring up the example of the 2023 class again because we literally just talked about how a lot
but
of
it's a
those guys
perfect
turned out to
fit.
be
It's a
misses,
perfect
but
fit.
it's a very natural parallel here
Yep.
because again, on signing day, every Oklahoma fan was thrilled with that class, regardless how it turned out. Like there was a sense of satisfaction on signing day, especially once Oklahoma locked down Peyton Bowen to close out the number 6 class in the nation. But Oklahoma had, I think, 3 commits going into the month of June. And
Yeah.
then I'll walk you through it. Brandon, this is how it went down. Keon Brown on June 5th. Cade McIntyre on the 13th. Caleb Hicks on the 15th. Heath Ozida on the 27th. Samuel Omasigo on the 30th. Then the calendar flips to July. It was Phil Picciotti on the 4th. Jacquez Petaway on the 6th, Caden Green on the 8th, Logan Howland on the 9th, PJ on the 10th, Dalen Smothers on the 14th, Lewis Carter on the 16th, Josiah Wagner on the 25th, Derek LeBlanc on the 28th. So for 2 months, you did not have to go much longer than a week and a half.
Yeah.
And on occasion, not longer than 48 hours
Hmm.
without a new commitment. And so you might see that type of phenomenon with how things are lining up and stacking up for Oklahoma right now in the 26 cycle.
I remember Jackson Arnold calling me one time and saying, like, because he was worried about his class. And this was like right in the middle of his spring practice. I was supposed to go down there and see him the next day. And he was calling, checking in to make sure I was coming down. And he goes, dude, are we going to get commits anytime soon? We have 3. It has been forever. And I said, I expect June to be a good month for you. He goes, yeah, people keep saying that in our text chain, he said, but I have to see it to believe it. And you have to understand, coming from perspective from him, he was moving like skyrocketing up in the rankings at that point, and felt like, well, at the time, his best friend Peyton Bowen was trending towards Oklahoma, and that ended up being a whole dramatic ending that ended well for Oklahoma fans, but um, it was stressful for him, and because he wasn't in control, he was doing all he could to recruit, and it wasn't happening for him. Obviously, as Parker said, he named it. The next 3 months were just banging for Oklahoma, and that's what we expect moving forward in 26. So, um, with that said, let's talk about safety and defensive tackles, since that seems to be where the obviously the commit happened yesterday with Nico Jandreau at safety, and the next commit potential next commit. I want to throw that out there. Potential next, because it's not done yet, on May 23rd. Seems to be trending in the direction of Brian Harris. We'll see where that actually ends. But right now, Oklahoma feels good. There's picks being put in for Brian Harris for Oklahoma. Things seem to be trending well. Um, with those 2 positions, I know, let's start with safety. I, Parker, I'm going to sit here and say that Presley is probably going to be one of them. And then I'll say Eberhardt, excuse me, uh, will be the second one at this time, and or Caden Hall.
So,
Those
okay,
will,
so to be clear, he's talking about Braden Presley from
yeah,
Bixby, name that's going to be familiar to a lot of Sooner fans. The other name he mentioned is one that's probably unfamiliar to plenty of folks. That would be
yeah,
Jacob
Jacob Eberhardt,
Eberhardt
Eberhardt.
from Kirkwood, Missouri.
Yep. And so here's the thing: is like it seems like that thing's trending, and he wants to get this thing over with as well. Missouri's pushing hard for him, I believe. I want to say, is Illinois the other one? Yeah, Illinois is the other one that's pushing hard for him. But he has every offer in the book. I mean, Alabama, Arkansas, Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, K State, LSU, Miami, Florida, Nebraska, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas A&M, USC, West Virginia, Wisconsin, you name it, he's got it. I didn't even name K State, Kansas. Like, there's so many teams that he's been offered. Kentucky. It feels like Oklahoma's trending in a really good direction there. But obviously, Caden Hall out of, I think, Fort Lauderdale. He's from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly. He's the other guy. He's visited Oklahoma. Uh, is it? Has he visited twice, Parker?
I think it's
Or
only been one visit to this point.
once? Okay. Um, he's got an official setup for June 20th. He has an official to Penn State. We're talking about Caden Hall, by the way. Florida State on June 6th. In a few weeks, he's going to Florida, and he's also got Alabama. So he's got like 6 official visits lined up. We'll see where it goes. Oklahoma is going to press. They're going to try to get 3. They're going to try to get 3. So you're looking at obviously Nico Jandro, and then 2 of potentially 1 of 3, but they would like 2 of the next 3 of Jacob Everhart, Caden Hall, and obviously Braden Presley. So um, Presley, I believe, is a 3-star. The other 2 are 4 stars. And I know fans will be like, well, let's take the 4-star. Well, Presley's a really good player. He's a guy that can play corner or safety. He's that good. He's that athletic. He's a really good wide receiver as well. So just keep that in mind when talking about that. But I know from what I'm told, Coach Hall is out seeing all of them over the next week or so. So should have a better feel for where those things are at when we catch up with those players after Hall goes by. Coach Hall goes by and sees them. At the defensive tackle spot, that is a more broad ranged attack, if you will, for Oklahoma. However, Parker, if you and I were going to lay that out as far as where this class is going to end, I think we both feel as if it's pretty, I don't know, would you say set in stone a little bit? No, no pun intended, because he's a defense tackle at Oklahoma, but um, and when I say set, it's not guaranteed, but you feel like Stone and Oklahoma are in a really good spot, and Nebraska would be the team that you're watching for there. If you were watching for a team to maybe pull that one out, he is going to take other visits, but it feels like Nebraska and Oklahoma are in the best spot for Stone at this point. And then Taj Overton out of Owasso, Oklahoma. Um, Tennessee's trying to get an official visit set up with him. We'll see where that goes, but he has one set up for LSU, and he has one set up, I believe. What was the other? There was another SEC school that he was, Ole Miss. So I believe LSU is at the end of this month. Ole Miss, I believe, is on June 6th or June 13th, excuse me. And then Oklahoma on June 20th right now. He's only got 3 official visits set up. He wants to play in the SEC. I think Oklahoma gets Taj Overton. Stone is a, you said on the phone, got to watch out for the purse that is Nebraska, because they have so much money that they can throw around.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. OU getting money whipped by Nebraska is not a new phenomenon.
No,
Happened multiple times last couple cycles.
no. In Stone, yeah, Taj Overton's in the top 250. I believe Stone has moved up in the top 250 recently, right? Or is he 4? I know he's a 4-star, but has he moved up in the top 250 yet?
Sohn, as of right now, for us at Rivals, is a 4-star, and he has just moved up into the top 250s, number 195 overall, number 13 among defensive tackles.
So let me make this clear to everybody. If Oklahoma's going to get a 5-star outside of Jake Krell, it's going to be Stone. He has a chance to be a 5-star when it's all said and done. He's going to continue his meteoric rise. You and I saw him. We've seen him in person. He's ridiculous. Ridiculous. He is unbelievable. So, I don't know, man. I mean, do you have any other defensive tackles you think Oklahoma lands in that class? Everybody wants to talk about Deuce Gerald's. He's going to take an official to Oklahoma, but I don't think Oklahoma gets him.
Yeah, well, Tank Carrington's going to take an official as
well.
well.
Yeah, and Tank Carrington, that's right.
That's another name worth knowing. But yeah, no, it feels like the two guys the two guys right now that Oklahoma has the best chance with
Mm-hmm.
are Brian Harris and Taj Overton. And then we'll see where things go with Sohn, excuse me. Feel decent about it right now as far as Oklahoma's concerned. But if you can land two or three between Sohn, Overton, and Harris, that's a dang good class.
It's a really good class.
Dang good class. You'll take that.
Is there any other position that you feel like, I mean, outside of linebacker, that everything is just kind of up in the air? Wide
Well, okay,
receiver,
running
maybe?
back. Running back is
Mm.
a position I think we're gaining clarity on because we know at this point that Oklahoma's pushing hard for Rylan Morris, the Baylor commit. They'd love to flip him. They're going to get him on campus for an official visit the week of June 6th through the 8th. Outside of him, we saw them make a brand new offer in recent days. And it's a kid that's been on their radar forever, Brandon. I mean, I remember going up to Peculiar, Missouri to see this kid in May of 2023 when he
I
was
love that
finished
name,
up
by
his
the way.
freshman year. DeZaphan Walker, 4-star running back out of Ray-Pec. And this is a guy that was, for all intents and purposes, down to a top four: Nebraska, Kansas, Kansas State, Notre Dame. But that top four has become a top five since Oklahoma got involved. He's going to OV to Oklahoma. It's just a matter of when. And he's a bigger back. Rylan Morris is, a little bit more diminutive, more of a speed elusiveness type guy. Um, DeZaphan Walker isn't Jonathan Hatton physically because I don't think any running back in the 2026 class is Jonathan Hatton physically. But DeZaphan Walker's 6 feet tall, 205 pounds, big body back with some burst. There's a lot to like with him on tape. And as long as Oklahoma can kind of close the gap with Nebraska, most specifically, then there's a very realistic chance that they can sway him to Norman come OV season because he is kind of enamored with everything that Oklahoma is from a tradition standpoint, especially at his position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, I love the name
Peculiar.
peculiar. That's really hard to say, by the way. That is a weird word. It's a peculiar.
It's a
I can't even say
peculiar word, huh?
peculiar word. I cannot say that for some odd reason. The L, man, that's like a tongue twisting word. Yeah, it sounds like I'm got like a speech impediment when I say that word. um, yeah, that he is big. I was looking at his stuff earlier. You bring up Jonathan Hatton. Oklahoma's still talking to him. I don't think anything's ever going to come about with that just because it's going to take him being willing to take less money to go to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's not going to pay $450,000 for a running back. They're just not. They will for a transfer running back. Don't get it twisted. But a running back out of high school, that's just not going to happen. Not underneath the new way Oklahoma is going about attacking. They're in a development mindset moving forward with the high school guys. Development and retention. And so I like the offer. If you got him and Rylan Morris, that's a good class at running back. With not, it's an upside class. Does that make sense? It's not like a class that the guys are going to come in and instantly start to play. I don't know that either one of them would turn heads the way that Torrey Blaylock has turned heads when he came in because everybody's talked about how good a spring that he had. However, 2 years down the line, they could be a good tandem because they're so different. You got your lightning and thunder type deal, right? And that I think is what Oklahoma's looking for. They want a physical back in the SEC, but they also know for the offense that they run, they need somebody that is going to be able to make people miss out and line up at slot and do a lot of different things for them to create mismatches. And so that, again, I'm a huge Rylan Morris fan. I think Coach Hall at Baylor did a really good job evaluating him to start and getting in on him. I think Oklahoma waited too long, unfortunately. Well, I say that. I think they waited, and it's costing them with him at this point. I think that's a better way to put it because they still have a chance on June 6th when he takes his OV. So we'll see where it all turns, man. Is there any other running back out there that you think, outside of the three that we've mentioned, Hatton, um, uh, anybody else that you think they might push for down the line?
Right now, the focus is Morris and Walker.
Yeah.
And then I think at that point, with where OU's at, like it's hard enough right now to get an OV locked in with DeZafe Walker, and there's some things that are going to need to be moved around there because he already had his whole slate set
Mm-hmm.
when Oklahoma got involved, and so it's a weird juncture on the calendar where if you're going to push for a guy that has a bunch of other big time offers, then you're going to have to go the extra mile to try and iron out OV plans. And so I think there's a real good chance that Oklahoma just goes into OV season with Morris and Walker as the foci, if you will, of their recruiting efforts at the running back position. And they may be the only two running backs that OV with the Sooners. And then if one or both of them doesn't want to jump at the opportunity to be a part of the class, then you kind of just sit and wait, see who pops onto the radar with a strong first 4 games their senior year on the huddle film and
Yeah.
see what your options are at that point. I mean, it never feels it never feels ideal when that's what you're doing, waiting till the fall of these guys' senior year to see who really jumps on the radar in a big way, because it feels to the average fan like you should have answers before then. But you can find some really, really good football players late in the process by
Mm-hmm.
just being willing to be patient and see how some of these fringe guys develop.
No, yeah. I'm interested to see a lot of, like, there's a lot of that at wide receiver. They've offered or close to offering a couple fringe guys. Um, Running back, offensive line. I mean, they're they're looking for, and I know this will make OU fans, some OU fans get upset about this because they're not just going after the Felix Ojos of the world, and they are, but they're not landing those types in this class. This class is going to be more of a developmental class than anything else. Because Oklahoma's so young, they have a chance to do this. You can do this when you have a youthful roster the way that Oklahoma has right now. I think the 2027 class is going to be more in the line of what Oklahoma's fans are used to as far, and I think that also goes in line because there's going to be in-state kids, or there are in-state kids that are really, really good and highly ranked in 27 in state. So that also helps. I don't think the 26 class being not as strong in state, it hurts Oklahoma because now they're having to go out of state. You can't build a base on in-state kids the way you could in 25, the way you could in 24, 23. Like, that's just not happening. 27 you can, because there's a potential 5-star offensive lineman in Hatchet, excuse me, out of Fort Gibson. So, like, there's some the way Oklahoma's attacking it, man. I do like development, elite, development, elite. If you go back and forth with that, because you're going to develop guys, Parker. You're going to develop guys into elite guys eventually, guys with high ceilings. So that's a good way. I think it's a good way. Do you think they're kind of moving towards a Clemson, the Clemson model that Venables has been wanting to move towards this whole time?
Hmm.
I know it's weird.
Yeah, and I don't know how realistic that is, but I see what you're saying. There's a lot about Clemson that is just increasingly unique in the NIL era of college football, and what works
Yeah.
for Dabo works for Dabo. I think there was a time certainly that Brent figured what worked for Dabo could work for him at Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true to an extent, but it's not a congruous comparison by any means.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Is there anything else that we need to dive into?
Well, I think we covered all that we need to cover. We'll
Yeah.
loop back around with another podcast in the next few days because recruiting's going to really start to ramp up here before
Yeah.
long. Camps are just a couple of weeks away
I cannot
at
wait.
OU. Those will be fun. Official visits start 3 weeks and change from now at Oklahoma. So that'll be a ton of fun to track over at ouinsider.com. Man, there is so much content over there on the site right now. I mean, we're keeping members up to date on everything there is to know about the world of OU recruiting right now.
Mm-hmm. It is it's blowing up. We have Parker and I have dropped multiple notes almost every day. Got notes coming on several positions moving forward. Um, Basically, who Oklahoma has their best shot with right now at several positions on the defensive side of the ball and offensive line. I hit most of the offense last week. Going to finish the series out this week on 2 or 3 guys at every position Oklahoma has their best chance with. Not really class prediction, but sort of is in a roundabout way. And then eventually Parker and I will start throwing out class predictions. Right now, it's been really hard to do that
That it
because
has.
it's changed so much over the last 2 months. Well, I think we did a class prediction way early back in January, February, and half those kids Oklahoma's not even pushing for anymore. They've gone in a different direction. It's chaos. And it's fun though. It's fun, and there's a lot to talk about over on OU Insider VIP. We got a lot of that information coming up. Softball, baseball being covered for you guys with obviously Jesse Crittenton, Josh Mahler covering baseball and softball for you guys. Parker and I got the recruiting. We got the team notes for you guys. Brody Lusk still hitting the basketball stuff for you guys all the time on a weekly basis. So much to talk about. Oh, everybody's talking vacations. They're talking Thunder, NBA playoffs. They're talking the top movies over on OU Insider. It's a community. It is a community, and that's something we stress to you guys. A community of OU fans that can talk about anything and everything on there, as long as it's not politics or religion. And you can talk about that stuff as long as it doesn't get out of hand, naturally. But it's a community. Everybody loves to talk over there. They love to debate. They talk about college football across the board, NFL, NBA, recruiting, everything. It is talked about over there in a very tight-knit, large community. So if you want to come join us, it's $9.95 a month, $99.95 for the whole year. You get information, insider information you don't get here. We talk about stuff on here, and you think, oh, well, I know this and that. You don't know. I'm telling you, you know way more if you're over there on OU Insider VIP. I promise you that. Plus, you get the community aspect of it as well, which is the funnest part of it. So it's $9.95 a month, $99.95 for the whole year. If you're a college student, .edu. There's a ton of college students over there already. I think we've had close to 1,000 already sign up. And .edu. You send us an email to ouinsider@rivals.com from your .edu email to prove that you're a college student. We'll send you back a promo code, $11.95. Literally less than $1 a month. You get OU Insider for a whole year. 1 year, $11.95. ouinsider@rivals.com. Send us an email from your .edu saying you want the promo code. We'll hook you up. Same thing, active duty email. You send us from your active duty email. If you're active duty military, email us ouinsider@rivals.com. We will send you a promo code. You get OU Insider for 1 year for $11.95. All right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Students podcast, powered by River Wind Casino. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. You guys have a blessed day.